For 7 days, I did Stephen King's writing routine. Or rather, I attempted.
I just got back in from the walk. It didn't go exactly as how I hoped it would go.
Because what always gets in the way? Life. And I think that is a very important lesson to take away from the situation, because any of us that are working towards being a published author, life will always get in the way. Through this experience, I really want to focus on what it is I learned, what it is I hoped to achieve, and how I got through the challenges, and am I still doing his routine, or what did I take away from it that really helped me? Okay, so let's get into it. Day one was kind of a hot mess.
There is a reason that Stephen King has breakfast before he goes through this 3.5 mile walk. I usually do like 1 to 2.5 miles a day, but those walks are usually broken up. So doing like the full together, it was challenging for not having to have breakfast. I thought for some reason he had breakfast before he sat down to write. No, he does not. He has it before the walk. So I'm battling a little bit of a headache right now. I'm gonna go ahead and eat breakfast before I even sit down to write, which bums me out a little because it's also like 9:30 and he normally starts his routine around 8:30. So he clearly goes out for the walk by like at least 6:30 to make sure he gets it in. I'm back and I have tea because he does tea or water. I still need some caffeine, so we're doing green tea. I've been fed. It is a little later than I would like it to be. It is 10:54. I don't like starting this late in the day, and especially with like having ADHD, sometimes when things take too many steps to get to something, it can be a little frustrating. I'm going to read what I wrote last and then start my way into new pages. I know sometimes he does editing. I'm gonna play around with that a little bit, but honestly, my biggest focus is to get words on the page. So I have my playlist. I'm going to start playing that to get me in the zone, and I'm gonna go with about 1,000 words today. I read like so many different things and the math didn't really make sense, but everyone basically says he writes somewhere from 1,000 to 2,000 words. So that's what I'm gonna aim for.
It took me way too long to get out the door. I did not realize or really think about how long it would take to do a 3 to 4 mile walk before writing. Very frustrated, because the whole point about doing his routine was more about creating a writing routine for myself so I could get further along in my book, but one, also to not have this like anxiety around showing up at the keyboard every day to write, that I'm not saving lives, I'm just telling a story, to let go of any insecurities I might be having or doubts in myself. Which leads me to, actually, I should discuss why I wanted to do this challenge in the first place. So like I said, I really wanted to have a writing routine. I didn't want to be scared showing up to the keyboard. Also, I have ADHD, and sometimes every day can be its own little adventure. And on days when I film YouTube videos, sometimes that's where all my focus goes. And I wanted to see if there was a way that I could write in the morning just for an hour or two, but also still work on my channel and do other adult life responsibilities. And could I actually make this work? But honestly, the biggest thing was I really wanted to get over my fears and insecurities I was having. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've been a reader my whole life, and I have done writing. I've written poems, I've written short stories, I've written short films, but I've never done anything long form, especially book-wise. And so I think it's really important to share that, because as vulnerable and uncomfortable as that makes me, there might be someone else like you who feels the same exact way and is scared to start writing your book. And I want you to know you should do it, because if you're a creative person, you know that you have a story inside you that it's waiting to burst out of you and be told. And I like to call myself a dream pusher. I am really big about going after the creative things that you love and working really hard on it and trying, because you never know what could happen. Just because maybe your skill is different from someone who went to college, has a degree, studied writing, it doesn't mean that your story is gonna be any less or any better. We are all different. We have all different life experiences. It is my first time, therefore I'm going to stumble and fall and learn so many things along the way. But for example, think about Stephen King and maybe the first novel that he wrote. We don't know what his experience was with that. We don't know what anyone's first experience is. But at the end of the day, everyone who wants to do something, they work really hard at it and they practice. And that was truly the biggest thing that I wanted to take away from this, was to show up almost every day and be excited and be okay with that. Okay, so back to day one. Like I said, the walk of 3 to 4 miles took way much longer than I expected. There were some good things that came out of it. It allowed me to think about my book, maybe what I'm gonna start writing when I get inside, and sort of have this like playtime, if you will. My brain was allowed to jump off into different places, have imagination, go down different rabbit holes, and just really sort of relax in nature and think about what I wanted to write when I got in, which was kind of like a nice little prepping session. But alas, I did write. It was a good writing session.
All right, I'm checking in with y'all. My cat just had lunch and she's like, if you do not snuggle with me, you're not allowed to write another word. I have hit my word goal and I totally get why King does it before anything else. Simple thing that we can easily push away. And I've noticed in the past few weeks that like, if I don't get to it right away, I tend to do that. And I also know I'm more creative in the morning. So making it the first thing I really do is important.
Mostly a success. Day two was probably my absolute best day. I woke up extra early to make sure I could cover my 3 to 4 miles, and I was able to start writing by, I think it was 9. He usually starts around 8:30, but you know, I was trying. I was working at it.
It's a pretty good try. It's 9:04, 2 hours earlier than yesterday. I'm actually excited to write. I am nervous. There's a few things I need to go in and fix and like previous chapters way down that I thought about. Stephen King talks about is when you just need to show up and write and not have it be this stressful thing. Like there's that iconic interview with him and George R.R. Martin saying,
"How the fuck do you write so many books so fast?" I think, I've had a really good 6 months. I've written 3 chapters, and you've finished 3 books in that time.
Here's the thing, okay? There are books and there are books. The way that I work, I try to get out there and I try to get 6 pages a day. So with a book like End of Watch, and when I'm working, I work every day, 3-4 hours, and I try to get those 6 pages and I try to get them fairly clean. So if the manuscript is, let's say, 360 pages long, that's basically 2 months' work. It's concentrated, but it's but that's assuming that it goes well.
And you do hit 6 pages a day?
I usually do.
You don't ever have a day where you sit down there and it's like constipation and you write a sentence and you hate the sentence and
okay.
you check your email and you wonder if you had any talent after all and maybe you should have been a plumber. Don't you have days like that?
No, I mean, there's real life. You know, I can be working away and something comes up, and you have to basically get up and you have to go to see the doctor, or you have...
I have felt those fears and they just stop you from writing. It really does take the fear out. It builds the muscle in you. It creates sort of this like daily practice. Like he calls it like a routine. When you go to bed, you do these things, you brush your teeth, you whatever before you get into bed. You just have these things that you automatically do that you don't think about, and that's really what I want to happen for me with my writing. And so today was, yes, it was a world building day, but it was so needed and it was so good and it was so fun, and I showed up.
I had to do a lot of world building, but I think something I'm realizing now in writing fantasy is that is part of the process.
So it is now 10:53. I am finally going to write, and I'm gonna do it because I need to, since yesterday was a full-on world building day. I wrote 1,017 words. I think it's working. I think this new routine is working. I do think the optimism is starting to build, which is exciting. And even though it feels hard and scary sometimes to sit down every time, it's becoming more of a positive nervous thing of like, oh, I get to do this, where is it gonna go? Which is exactly what I wanted to achieve.
Then this is where sort of the rest of the week got really messy.
What is this, day 4 of showing up? Yeah, it's day 4. I'm in a funk today. I've just been struggling to stay focused. I'm able to show up and write. I'm just like, I feel like my head is being pulled in different directions. It's interesting, you do something for X amount of days and it starts to feel good. I feel like sometimes the farther you get in it, you start to feel a little bit of resistance. So we reached an exciting milestone today. I wrote 1,268 words. So I've officially hit the 20,000 word goal mark. I do think that showing up every day and just doing little bits at a time really does help. It feels less overwhelming and you accomplish so much every time you do it.
But then the weekend hit and some life things hit. But the point is that life happens. And maybe sometimes you're not gonna be able to show up every single day to write. But I would hope that at the end of this, the only reason I'm not showing up to write is because there are life matters I have to deal with, something that is a little bit more higher up on the totem pole of responsibilities, versus I'm just too nervous. I'm afraid that whatever I write is gonna be bad, or it's not gonna be good, or I can't get something to come into my brain. So I will say, even though the challenge in itself was not perfectly successful, The mindset that I wanted to achieve was fairly successful. Now, when I write, I'm not in fear. I enjoy doing it. I just struggle sticking to a routine, which is ironic because with having ADHD, you thrive on routine, but you resist it constantly. That's just how my brain works, and it is what it is. In that week though, I hit 20,000s. That was really exciting. The following week, I ended up rewriting a scene 3 different times, finally happy with it, and I am now settling into actually rereading what I've written so far to make sure all of my lore is in line from what I have world built so far. Doing these routines based off of famous authors, I think are really helpful because it helps you find a way for what works for you, and it can also help you find new mindsets when it comes to writing. Have fun and enjoy being in the trenches. So I challenge you, if you are struggling to show up to write, remember, you don't have to write every day. But if you're not gonna write, make sure it's because there's something else that might be more important or just doesn't fit in your schedule versus you being afraid. Don't ever let it be fear that is stopping you. We all wanna hear your voice. I'll see you in the next video.